Gus, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Frank Analysis. I'm your host, Franco. We just talked about the crisis happening right now at the border with Haitian refugees. And just to tie that topic in with this topic, I was once again, very disappointed with some comments with a candidate that I supported during the 2020 primaries. You know what she had to say, and that was none other than Tulsi Gabbard. Once again, last week we talked about some disappointing tweets that she made about 9/11. She's not looking at the root cause of why that happened, which is U.S. foreign policy. As well as what else did she say? As well as her comments about Africa and how she's saying that we have to be there, we have to send troops there because we got to fight terror. Not looking at how the U.S. creates these terrorists. They fund them, they create chaos, and then they use that as an excuse to stay in these countries. Well, now look at what she said about Haiti. She said Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, who she called out so remarkably in the 2019 primary debate stage. She said the humanitarian and national security crisis on the southern border is a direct result of your open border policy. As I said in my 2020 presidential campaign, we can't have a secure nation if we don't secure our borders. Again, like I mentioned in the last segment, what this is doing is trying to fix the problem with a bigger and bigger band-aid when it requires some serious surgery. You're having organ failure or a broken bone and you think that you can fix the problem with a band-aid? You're just going to make that band-aid bigger, even though our U.S. foreign policy and U.S. imperialism, that's not getting fixed. So we're just going to get even more refugees trying to come over here? What are we going to do? Continue to... And then look at who's in power still. The ruling predator class will still be in power. They're still going to give orders for those people in horses or people sending these refugees to internment camps. That's going to continue. Always look at the root of the problem, and then looking at that and trying to fix that is how you will actually fix the problem. But yeah, I just had it with her. I mean, I spent months, over a year, defending Tulsi Gabbard. And I guess me evolving and seeing through electoral politics and how this is not how we're gonna solve our problems. That even if somebody sounds remotely anti-establishment, even just a little bit, they're gonna be a problem for the establishment, and they're gonna do everything they can to prevent that candidate from getting votes. I mean, our election systems are privately owned. It's impossible for an anti-establishment candidate to win. And even then, the bar is just set so low. It's so low. Tulsi Gabbard just had problems. She already had problems, which we will get into in just a bit here, about her stance on drones. But I think that I was just so infatuated with her policies being a lot better than even Bernie Sanders, whose policies I was infatuated with back in 2016, that I was too busy celebrating and defending her and being hopeful. And I'm sure many of you guys can attest to that as well. But this is following this interview that she had here with Tucker Carlson about her stance on drones. It's wow. Just listen for yourself, guys. I'm about to play it right now. Hang on a second. I have to play the volume. I have to play it with the volume here on my phone because I don't have speakers yet for this new computer.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie. I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life. You get caught, and nothing happens to you. What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible. Yeah. War is a terrible thing, and I think it's important for the American people to understand that Islamist jihadists are continuing to wage war against us. And the Islamist ideology, not the same as the religion of Islam, but this Islamist ideology, which is a political ideology that inspired the terrorist attacks on our country on 9/11, is the greatest threat that we're facing right now in this country and the world. It is the foundation of governance of so-called Islamic countries like Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And it's what's behind the discriminatory policies that they have in these countries against Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, and others. So as long as these Islamist jihadists are waging war against us, we have to work to defeat them militarily and ideologically. And militarily, we have two choices in how we do that. Number one, we can continue to invade and occupy and nation-building countries around the world, just as we did in Afghanistan, at great cost. Number two, we can take a targeted approach using airstrikes, using our special forces to go in and go after these terrorist cells. The reality is that the cost to the American people, the cost to our troops, the cost to civilians will be far less if we take this very targeted approach to go after these jihadist terrorist cells than if we continue making the very same mistakes that we saw in Afghanistan and other parts of the world of invasion, occupation, and nation building.
So what is different with how Tulsi sounds here and how somebody who was in the Bush and Cheney administration sounded, who were defending the decision to go to war with Iraq and Afghanistan, saying that we have to go after terrorists, saying that the problem is in the ideology that Islamists have. And that's the distinction that we have to make here. Islamists are not people who who are of the Islam. It's not everybody of the Islam religion. It's the extremists. But regardless, like, this is manufacturing consent for war. Like, the reason why we're there isn't because of that. And she knows better. She knows better. The reason why we go to those countries is for the resources that are there, for the oil, the rare earth minerals, to advance the agenda of the World Economic Forum and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Right? And we know this. We supported her because she would call out regime change war. Right now, all the wars that the U.S. is involved with is regime change war, and they use terrorism as an excuse. And now that's what Tulsi Gabbard is doing right here. And what's worse here is that this individual here that tweeted this out, I'm not exactly familiar with this person. You know, maybe I should be. I haven't seen their work. I apologize. They said Tulsi Gabbard defends the use of drone strikes following the strike that killed 10 civilians, including an aid worker and 7 children in Kabul. And this is what was revealed thanks to Daniel Hale, the whistleblower, showing that the casualty rate from drone strikes is 90%. And here she is advocating for drones. But however, like I said earlier, this was always her stance. But yeah, here, this individual here, at Confused Prague, said, here's an article from January 20th, 2018, in which Tulsi discusses drones and special ops type missions. The author mentions her view about the war on terror. Perhaps some were not aware, but Tulsi didn't hide her views. This is published on The Intercept here. The difference I see is that when Tucker asked her about it, a horrendous, deadly drone strike involving civilians had just happened. Also, she had a limited time to respond to the short segment hit versus an article. So I guess she didn't have time to explain the nuances, but regardless, it's not a good look at all. Not at all. And if she joins the Republican Party, I'm not going to support her either. I'm not supporting any politician ever again. Then the solutions are in opting out of the system, organizing with your community, and direct action. We're going to talk about that later in the solutions portion of the stream. But yeah, here's the article. Tulsi Gabbard endorsed very limited use of drones against ISIS and Al Qaeda. I mean, that's pretty consistent with what she was saying in Africa about, we have to have boots on the ground in Africa because of Al Qaeda. I mean, that's what she's saying here, like going after terrorists. So it's not actually getting rid of war. I mean, we use terrorism as an excuse for regime change. But I guess we just didn't see it back then. Like, those of us that supported her, we were just really infatuated with her other political stances and the policies that she was introducing, and the bar was just set so low, so incredibly low, that she just really stood out. I subconsciously thought the good outweighed the bad and didn't pay enough attention to this right here. But yeah, also, as we've evolved so much since the primaries, a lot of us, that now just comments like this, it's just like, it's just unexcusable for us to hear comments like that. Like, we see beyond that now. And Tulsi Gabbard is just stuck in like 2019 mode where she was at. But now she's focusing on these positions that she had from back then that, we didn't really like, but we didn't pay enough attention to. But yeah, these drone strikes, as long as we still have these drone strikes, as long as the US continues to have these predators involved in calling the shots, that withdrawal from Afghanistan and from any country that we say we withdraw from won't be real. Stay informed, guys.